businesses in the Pacific Island Kingdom of Tonga are a small but growing sector in an economy that is largely based on remittances and small agro-based industries. However, over the years, these businesses have been struggling to operate under new trade conditions that have been imposed on them by their government as a result of their membership of the World Trade Organization, or WTO.
The current situation in Tonga is quite desperate in terms of the wider picture for the farmers at the grassroots level.
Tonga's export is not increasing. In fact, it has been reducing in the past 5 years, declining.
With the reduction in our volume in squash over the last few years, it's had a huge impact on the economy in terms of our farmers, and we're trying to revive that by looking at other new commercial crops, cash crops for export into New Zealand and around the Pacific.
Some companies have closed down. This is primarily because most of the Tongan businesses import quality products, and they are much higher value, and therefore they cannot compete. Then they cannot be competitive in the market with the Chinese-owned businesses who imports less quality and less expensive products.
When Tonga joined the World Trade Organization, or WTO, in 2007, it was hailed as a major step in the country's development.
Former government at the time said that Tonga would benefit a lot from being a member of WTO.
Economists predicted that by freeing up its markets under WTO rules, Tonga would see an increase in employment and an increase in exports. But with the benefits still yet to materialize, the people are being asked to wait a little longer.
In terms of negative effects, I think it's still too early to tell the impact of WTO, as I mentioned, because some of the benefits that WTO bring into the country is relatively longer term, and there are some that are short term.
Tonga was exporting squash to Japan way before we became a WTO member. It went through. You don't have to be a WTO member to be able to have market access to the Japan market. The squash industry is not growing as 10 years ago, but the whole issue here is that whether or not we became a WTO member, we can still have, there's always ways of having market access to overseas market.
Another issue at the center of contention is tariffs. Tariff cuts was to have led to cheaper prices of goods, something many in Tonga do not enjoy today. However, the government continues to insist that prices are dropping.
The public now can enjoy the price of imported goods for consumption cheaper. Having said that, it must be treated with caution because the trend of prices tend to increase, not related to the WTO. But under the old regime of tariff in the order of over 40%, things would have been more dearer. But now it has been liberalized to less than 20% in most products. So it's fair to say that the public are enjoying a cheaper imported price for goods inflow into the country.
Tonga was given the opportunity and told basically that you have to lower your tax income to below 20%. And that for itself is really a knock in the head in terms of your ability or the ability of a government to earn revenue.
One of the hardest hit sectors has been Tonga's local and family-owned business. They've seen market access disappear and are fighting for survival against bigger foreign companies and cheaper imported goods.
You know, WTO was supposed to make it easier for us to export to other countries. I mean, we're still seeing countries out there who are being subsidized by their own governments, and yet they are a member of the WTO. We take New Caledonia, for example, who we see as our competitor in squash business into the Japanese market. They're being subsidized, heavily subsidized by the French government, and yet they are a WTO member. So where's the fairness in that?
Interviewed quite a lot of business people in Tonga. This is their experience. They say what they voiced back in 2007 is actually proven today. Business die one by one, and it's not simply because of the economic downturn in Tonga, but simply because they really didn't understand the accounting aspects of WTO.
One of the key social and political aspects about the process undertaken was that public concerns about Tonga's WTO membership was not taken seriously by the government.
There was very brief consultation only of selected NGOs that the government then, the former government, wanted to invite to this consultation.
The human rights organization was concerned about the timing because it did not allow the public to be engaged in an effective or meaningful way with the agreements, with the trade agreements and its details.
We organize a small group like a national one, and they get funds from Oxfam try to do this. And we make a survey to protest the whole country. Oh, very sadly, when that protest survey was done, or we were doing it, I was part of it with the young people. The government, Fukuoka told us the government already signed this WTO without the notice of the larger public.
WTO rules have also affected the Tongan government's ability to enforce laws that protect their people.
Tonga is currently importing lamb flaps from New Zealand. That is clearly a health hazard for the country. And yet, under the World Trade Organization rules, Tonga is not allowed to prohibit the importation of lamb flaps. Okay? And so the question that Tonga has to ask is the importation of lamb flaps healthy for our people and is a threat to the national security of the country?
There's a lot of politics between nations, and there's also non-tariff barriers against countries, smaller countries like ourselves, which is actually hindering our trade. So, I mean, in the Pacific, and I say this in support of every other country in the Pacific, because really we don't have many resources apart from our agriculture, fisheries and tourism. I think a quick fix for the problems that we have here in the country is agriculture. Identifying cash crops that would actually help us in the short term, but in the long term going forward. If we can try and open up the doors regionally between ourselves to trade amongst ourselves, it'll help us, rather than having to try and expand our exports to faraway countries such as Japan and Korea, the Asian market, which is costly for us in terms of logistics with freight.
It has become apparent that membership of the WTO was not in Tonga's best interests. The Tongan experience showed that small Pacific Island countries must not blindly follow the trade liberalization agenda currently being set by more developed countries. They must make decisions that protect their people and safeguard their destinies.
We should really rethink whether it is really of benefit for us to be members of the World Trade Organization. What we have thought that we would be able to yield from being members of the World Trade Organization, Tonga has demonstrated that it's not the case.
Representatives of the people in Tonga in the future will have to fight back and see if there is a way of pulling out, of withdrawing from the WTO.